As I say, I think it's a really exciting time in the Department for Education and Early Childhood Development. I think the work that you're doing is groundbreaking, not only within the state, but I would actually argue probably nationally and internationally. So I really just wanted to acknowledge that. I also wanted to acknowledge the tremendous work that many of your schools are also doing in the linkage between early years and schools. And I certainly know of some of the outstanding work. And I'm particularly interested in that interface because how we can get the best possible information about children early and use that information is kind of very interesting for me. I'm also involved in the Australian Early Childhood Development Index, and I think we're going to get some fabulous information about the developmental needs of our children and how we can actually strengthen that so we give the children the very, very best start in life. And in many respects, that's where we can start to really make a very big difference, is the kind of start we can give children and then continue to build on that. So I do think it's an exciting time. I think it's an exciting time in education and early childhood development, and I think the work that you're doing is really groundbreaking. So I really wanted to say that as up front, so that's why I like being involved. Okay, so what are we wanting to achieve in our hour? And it's probably fairly ambitious, but I want to really review some of our assumptions about data and really to check, how do you think about it as a leadership team? I want to look at how we might use our data for school improvement. And again, I'm going to reflect on two levels, at the whole school level. So how we use it to tell us about how we're travelling as a whole school. But then more specifically at the classroom level. Now, I'm also very aware that Patrick Griffin is working with you to do much more detailed work about how we use data at the individual student level. So I'm not going to get into too much detail about that today, but I do want to talk about where we might place our emphasis. I'm going to draw on the evidence from the school performance linkage analysis to really make sure that we clearly understand the main drivers of school improvement from the data that we actually have at our system level, and how we can use that to greatest effect. And then finally, I really want to reflect on some ways that as leadership teams we can actually support the strategic use of data for change and for school improvement. So they're the sort of hopefully what we're aiming to achieve. And as I said at the outset, I'm very keen for you to be reflecting all the way, where are we now in terms of these messages and practices, and what's our next step? Where do we need to go to take us forward? And I think with some of these things, we often have, quite a big next step, like maybe 3 years next step. And sometimes I think with this work, it's really important to keep your next step sort of within sight. So a next step might be sort of within the next 6 months. And I think in terms of change management, really thinking very clearly, what do you want to achieve by, say, middle of the year? And marking those achievements. Often in our quest for leadership, and most of you, because you are leaders, are probably, if you've done the Herman Brain, probably a lot of you are in the yellow quadrant, big picture thinkers, out there, creative, etc. And often we can lose our staff by doing that. So I'm encouraging you to sort of, some of you have put more of a green slant to your thinking and sort of ask, well, what do we need to do now to really make sure that we're well positioned for that future, and to keep the shorter term very much in focus for your staff so that they come with you on this journey. So let's check our assumptions. If I mention the word data what do you think? And it's not only about numbers. Most people, when they think data, think quantitative, think numbers, think percentages, and so on. And when we think about the use of data, I also want you to think about data as being observation, as being the kind of interviews that you might have with your staff. So what kind of information or evidence are you gathering along the way? So I really want to check your assumptions about what you're thinking about data, and whether you are thinking about data in both a qualitative and a quantitative sense.